We're going to be talking today about some Google tools that you can use to increase your productivity. These apply to both individuals as well as to businesses. We're going to have a very open format. So as we go through this, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to stop us, ask anything you may want, and we will have a time for question and answer at the end as well. And we've got the room up until 1 o'clock, actually up until 2 o'clock, I think. So we'll be glad to stick around and answer any questions you may have. If you don't feel like asking in a group setting, that's fine. Please stick around and ask any questions you may have. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, we want this to be a very open format. So if you have any questions at all, please just raise a hand or speak up, and we would love to answer whatever questions you may come up with. One of the things we're going to be doing today is flipping back and forth between the presentation and the web browser, so you can see exactly what it is we're talking about. We are also going to be posting both this presentation and a recording of the discussion online fairly shortly, so keep posted to our website. We are in the midst of redoing our website currently, but you will be able to find all of this within the next couple of weeks once that's done, and we'll send out a broadcast email to everybody, let you know once that's completed and once you can get to all the content online. So, a few quick interesting facts about Google. There are almost 12 billion Google searches monthly. 12 billion Google searches monthly. Google has 67% of the US search market. And this one was particularly interesting to me. 56% of users have Googled themselves to find out how they show up on the internet. So, we're going to talk about a lot of different tools today, but the core of Google's world is still search. That's where they started, and they still have some great power there. There are a lot of tricks you can use, though, to be smarter about how you search for things. The natural way to do that, and that most of us do, is you go type in a word, a phrase, whatever it is you're looking for. Sometimes, though, you have to hunt and pick a little bit through the results. It's not exactly laid out, and there are things you can do to try and bring the best results up faster. So the first one, to exclude a term from the search results, put a minus sign in front of that word. Let me show you exactly why that's relevant and why that's useful. So if you're searching for, let's say my kids are at home. They've got to do a report on Jaguars and why they are fast. You type in Jaguar fast, well, it comes up with a lot of car results. Google realizes I'm an alpharetta and assumes I must want to buy a Jaguar automobile. If I put that minus sign we just talked about in front of it, though, it's going to exclude the cars, and then you can remove other terms as well. And it'll start whittling through those search results that are irrelevant. So now all of a sudden, we've still got Jaguar at the ads up at the top, but now all of a sudden the cars are gone from all of our results down here. So it's about wildlife, animals, basic facts about big cats, the Wikipedia entry. Again, if there are results that you're getting that aren't relevant, so when I search for Jaguar and fast, I can remove anything that has the word car or automobile simply by putting a minus sign and that word in the search field. Next one is the ability to put a specific word or phrase inside quotation marks. There are lots of opportunities for what are called false positives. So if I search for imagine, you can see I get a lot of John Lennon lyrics when I search imagine people. If I search for the exact phrase, though, imagine all the people, which is a famous line from a song, it'll bring back results that just match that entire phrase, not individual words within the phrase, but that specific phrase itself, which helped significantly increase my results. The next one is a great one. If you know the content is on a site specifically, but you can't find it, let me show you here. If I just search for Tyler, now, when I was a young man, if I searched for Tyler, I'd find me and John Tyler, the former president of the United States, and not a lot else. Tyler has gotten to be a lot more popular. I can't claim all of the credit for making the name more popular, but it has become so. So you can see here, I'm finding stuff about Tyler, Texas. I'm finding stuff about other entries for that. If I know that the entry I want to find is on our website, carmichaelconsulting.net, I can search for Tyler, then the word site, a colon, and then the website I specifically want to search. And when I do that, there we go. I've only found results for the word Tyler on the website carmichaelconsulting.net. And there are entries there, obviously, from the About Us page, as well as from the contact page. So again, if you want to search within a specific site, and a lot of sites still don't have a search function on that specific site, just type the search word or phrase you want to use, the word site, a colon, and then that site name. And you do that right from Google. You don't have to go to the site first. You can do that from right within Google. And again, it'll then limit those results to just those entries that appear on that website. So some other interesting things you can do with Google. You can do conversions. So if I want to know how many dollars per euro, say I'm getting ready to head overseas, there I go, $1.26 per euro. It's a very natural language search too. So all I'm asking is how many dollars per euro. It's gone ahead and done the calculation. I can change the amounts here. So if I want to know how many euros per $100, it's 79.33. And again, it's tracking this real time. So as the markets shift and as the exchange rates go up and down, it's constantly recalculating this and giving me the latest information. I can also do the same thing for volume measurements and things like that. How many liters in a gallon? And 1 US gallon equals 3.78 liters. And again, I can continue to change the numbers here, and it'll recalculate for me on the fly. Weather conditions. So if I just type in the word weather, it's going to give me the weather for wherever my internet provider is. So we're connected, obviously, through the Greater North Fulton's internet connection. That's connected and shows up as being in Alpharetta. So if I just type in the word weather, it gives me the weather for right here in Alpharetta. You can see it's got basic information, a forecast out to next week. If I do the same thing for a different town, so let's say I'm headed to London. I've already checked on the euro, so I must be. If I do search for weather London, give me the forecast for London, and it happens for pretty much any major city in the world. So it's just that easy to get a weather forecast. I don't have to go to another site. I don't have to do anything. Just within Google, I can search and find the latest weather information. You can do math calculations. So you can do I can do the square root for whatever I randomly type, 459,835. It'll calculate it. You can see there's actually a little basic calculator built right into the search engine. I can do all kinds of basic computations there. You can also do dictionary searches. So if you type the word define and then a word, it'll actually do a dictionary lookup for you. So I just looked up the word presentation here. You can see there's a tremendous amount of information. It talks about the actual dictionary entries to the word presentation, gives you the Latin origins, gives you a translation to another language, commonality of use of the word in graph form. Again, an amazing and incredible amount of information readily at your fingertips. This one is the one that I'll do it while my wife's out of the room, looking for sports scores. So if you're in Google, you can type in, again, in a very natural language way, who do the Bulldogs play this weekend? Playing the Commodores. You can see there's an expansion there as well. It'll show me the season to date. It'll show me the upcoming schedule. And again, all from a natural language search within Google. I will say it was not as robust on my alma mater, a small liberal arts school in South Carolina, Presbyterian College. Google struggled with the Blue Hose schedule a little bit more, but that's okay. We understand this is ranked by the number of searches, so I get that. That's okay. I take no personal offense at that. So there are a lot of really amazing things you can do with search to make that as valuable for you, as responsive for you. And again, the idea there really is to be able to get you to the information you want as quickly as possible. There are a lot. There's an army of brilliant people at Google who make that better all the time. So it constantly improves. There are algorithms that they use that say basically based on what you search for, what's in your area, what people most commonly clicked on, what people clicked on and then didn't come back to search for something else. There are all these variables that go into that equation. But again, there are some great things you can do pretty easily to make those results more relevant for you. So one of the things that we've talked about briefly in some previous presentations, as well as at some other seminars where we do training, is Google Docs. We're going to dig into that a little bit more today because there's some really powerful things you can do here in terms of managing your documents. So Google Docs is a direct competitor to Microsoft Office. Most of us in here use Microsoft Office every day. We've probably bought Microsoft Office at home and cringed a little bit at that price tag. Google Docs really intends to be the replacement for Microsoft Office. Now, the good news is for us as consumers is that those two being in competition with each other means we get better products at better prices. We believe strongly that a good, healthy sense of competition benefits all of us. So there are multiple components to this. There is the Google Documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. As you can well imagine, those are parallel to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Microsoft PowerPoint. Google has done a very good job, though, at knowing that they can't start a new format and be successful out of the gate. So Google has been very deliberate to ensure that you can open up all of your Microsoft files in their tools. And if you create something in their tool, you can save it back out in a Microsoft format. So it's compatible with folks who are still using those tools. One of the big things that we're going to show you actually a live demo of in just a few minutes is the ability to work collaboratively on these documents. What that means is we've all sent out a document via email at some point. We've sent it out to 10 people and said, everybody needs to look at this document. Let me know if you have any changes. And you're hoping they all go, oh, it's fine, go ahead. They don't. So the first person is going to email you back and go, this second paragraph needs these changes. The next person is going to go, at the end of the document, can you add in these comments? The next person is going to go, I don't like the table on page 5. All of a sudden, you're going to have all of this data back to you, and you're going to have to try and reconcile and put that all together. Even with change tracking turned on in Microsoft Office, you still have to go in and manually choose which changes to accept, which ones to reject. There may be conflicts with more than one person doing the same thing. It pretty quickly becomes a tough administrative and management challenge. So what Google has done is allow you to live collaborate on the same documents. And like I said, we're going to give you a little live demo of that in just a few minutes. So how do you use Google Documents and Google Drive, which is about a little over a year old now? Google Drive is an online or cloud-based storage platform, very similar to tools like Dropbox or Box or any one of the number of other tools that allow you to store documents online. It's very similar in how it works to that. So this is just in a browser. I've got a test document, a test spreadsheet, and a test presentation here. This is the document editor. It looks very familiar. If you have used a word processor, you will immediately be comfortable with this tool. And you can see most of the standard tools are there. So within this, I can do things like change the formatting. I can choose a different font. I can choose a font size. I can choose whether it's bolded, underlined, italicized. I can choose if it's left or right justified. I can choose to enter a bulleted list. Again, all of those basic formatting tools. Now, the one word of caution I'll give you is, does this do everything that Microsoft Office does? No. But most of us, if we go hunting through the Microsoft Office drop-down menus, we'll get lost pretty quick because there is a ton of stuff out there that's not really relevant for most of us on a daily basis. The Google tools do about 90 to 95% of what Office does. If there are some uniquely esoteric things that you need access to, it may not be the perfect fit for you. But most of those are really exceedingly advanced functions that most of us will never use. So here's spreadsheets. And again, if you've ever used Microsoft Excel, it is a very familiar environment. You've got rows and columns. You can put in data. You can create formulas. You can have it do live updates to calculations. You can have it generate a graph down there at the bottom. Again, very, very, very familiar tools. And all of the same calculation tools are there to do things like sums and averages and all that kind of stuff, to do number count for entries. All of those kinds of things are there. And as you update the data, it updates the graph real time. Again, very capable spreadsheet for what most of us do. Same with presentations. Again, this is very similar to Microsoft PowerPoint. You'll see in the left column there are your slides. On the right-hand side, you can edit the specific contents of the slide. But what really makes these interesting is if you look back at all three of the applications in the upper right corner, there's that blue share button. And that's what's really interesting about that, and that is collaboration. So if you click that blue button in any kind of a document you have, whether it is a document, a spreadsheet, or a presentation, when you click that share button, this is the dialog box that comes up. So this is our corporate Google account. So you can see that by default, these documents are shared with anybody else who's a part of the Carmichael Consulting Group. I can change that. It's owned by me. It's by default shared with Neil, who's also in the Carmichael Group. I removed the rest of the names just for clarity's sake. But I'm going to invite down here at the bottom, you'll see invite people. So I've got example@test.com. So I'm going to invite somebody outside my organization to share in this document. So all I have to do is put in their email address. I can choose on the right-hand side there whether this user can edit the document, comment on the document, which means they can't change it. They can simply kind of put their notes in with it, and I can limit them to just being able to view it. If I just want them to get a preview of it, don't want them to be able to modify or suggest comments on the document, I can choose view. So again, you've got complete control over what level of access somebody else has to the document. So I'm going to send a note here to example@test.com. You can see there's a little checkbox down there that says notify people via email, and what's going to happen is that other person is going to get this. It says, Tyler Jones has invited you to edit the following document. It'll tell them what they can do in the invitation. So it'll say, Tyler Jones has invited you to either edit, comment on, or view the following document, and then the name of the document. And all the user has to do is open in Docs. Now, if that person already has a Gmail account or a YouTube account or any other kind of a Google account, they will go straight into the document. If they don't, they simply have to sign up for a Google account. They don't have to get a Gmail address. They can use their existing email address as the login. All they really are going to have to do is answer a couple of questions about their name, birth date, email address, so that Google can create that account, and then they have full access to the document I've invited them to. So I've created this document. I've shared it out with people. But does that tie me to the computer I'm on? That's the model we're used to. I created a document on this computer. That's where it lives. If I want to get back to that, I have to go back to that computer to be able to continue working on it. Thanks to Google Drive, that's no longer a requirement. So Google Drive, in combination with the Google Documents tools, allows you to access this information yourself from anywhere. So here are my Google Documents in Windows 7 in the Windows Explorer. We haven't had time to do a screenshot yet with Windows 10. I promise we'll work on that very soon. It just got announced yesterday, though, so we're not quite there yet. But it works fine in all modern versions of Windows. So if you're still using XP, one, come talk to us after this. We need to get you off XP. But if you're using Vista or Windows 7 or Windows 8, works fine across all of those platforms. And it syncs just like the other online storage tools do, the documents to your local computer. So if I unplug my computer from wireless networks and I go get on a plane to fly somewhere and I don't want to pay for in-flight Wi-Fi, that's fine. I can still have the documents right here on my computer, still edit them, and when I land and get to my hotel and reconnect to a wireless network, all of those changes get pushed right back up to Google. That's a great question. And you would think I planted you with that, but here's the screenshot of that on a Mac. Great question. You'll notice that these look almost exactly the same. And that's because Google has done a great job of making sure that it does not matter what computing platform you're using. You can use the Google tools no matter what kind of device you're using. And that's intentional. Google wants to be the provider of all of the applications and services you use. Google has their own operating system. On the mobile devices, they have Android. On laptops, they have the Chrome operating system. But Google doesn't want you to worry about what device you're using. They want to make these accessible and usable from any device you've got. And since we've already talked about Windows and Mac, it's also the same on a smartphone. So here it is on my iPhone. And again, it's the exact same documents, the exact same format. I can get to those regardless of the device I have. And as I modify these, they are instantaneously updated on every other device as long as I'm connected to the internet. So if I make a change on one device, before I even get to my car in the parking lot, it's on every other device at the same time. And if I don't have my computer with me, again, you can get to those exact same things in a web browser. So we used the example, a good friend and colleague of mine do some training on Google tools together. He relayed the story of an unfortunate mixture of a glass of wine and his laptop recently. That is not covered under the warranty, in case you're wondering. But the good news was all of his stuff was already stored in Google Drive. So he went to the store, he bought a new laptop, he came home, connected to the internet, logged into his Google account, and instantly everything he had stored in his Google Drive is immediately available to him. He lost no data in that, anything that was on Google Drive, and had the only downtime was going and getting another laptop. So anywhere in the world that you have access to a web browser, you can get to all of the content you have stored on Google.
So if you have like documents like on like jump drives all over, you can.
Exactly. It is the end of the jump drive as we know it. And the great thing here is anything you store in Google Drive, you have up to 15 gigabytes for free. That's a lot of data. Most users, in terms of their documents, have about 3 to 5 gigabytes worth. Folks who are really heavy users might start approaching that. So up to 15 gigabytes is completely free. The other cool thing is anything you store in the Google format. So if you store it not as a Microsoft Word file, but as a Google Doc file, doesn't count against your total. Anything in Google's format does not count against that total. So that's really powerful stuff. Now, let's say, yes?
Do we have to sign in Google Drive before we start doing all this stuff?
You don't have to. You need to sign into Google Drive, though, to get it synced up to Google. So that's the point at which you've got to make sure you're connected. That's a great question. So the other part of this is from what we look at right here, what is available to free for anybody. So let's say you own a business. You think this is great. It would make my team much more productive. We'd be able to work on these documents together. People would be able to work from anywhere. I don't have to buy them a laptop. If they've got a desktop at the office, they could work from their desktop at home. How expensive is that? The good news is Google makes this very affordable for small businesses. You can get all of this functionality plus an email address plus a website and a bunch of other business-specific tools for $5 per user per month. $5 per user per month. I remember when I was a kid, they used to always have the ads on for developing nations that you could feed a child for the price of a cup of coffee a day. I don't know where you can get a cup of coffee for $5 anymore, but you could get a month worth of Google for your business for that same fee. So let me talk a little bit more about what that includes for a business environment. So let's say I own acmemanufacturing.com. That's my domain. I can have all of my mail hosted through the Google Mail systems, still using my @acmemanufacturing.com address. Google hosts all of that. I can have my website for acmemanufacturing.com hosted by Google. I can have all of that in a single place with a single set of administrative tools. And again, it is $5 per user per month. For those users that are concerned about security, Google has done a good job of starting to address this more readily. With the advanced option, which is $10 per user per month, you get encryption, you get administrative controls that limit what access users have to the files and from where. It gives you much tighter security parameters. And again, all of that is an extra $5 per user per month. You can also add increased storage. You can get up to, I think it's now 99 terabytes of storage at Google. Now, there are additional monthly fees associated with that, but it is, for what you're paying, exceedingly low. One of the things we've talked about before in cloud technologies in this class is the power that cloud technology, and this is all cloud-based technology, the really strong things that brings to the table. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of that right now, because what you get in addition to just having access to your documents everywhere and that being so convenient is exactly what we talked about with the damaged laptop. It's also backed up. If I lose my laptop, my data still lives on Google's servers. Google's servers are in dozens of data centers around the country. They spend billions of dollars a year on the data centers that store all of this. So if there is an earthquake in California and it slides into the ocean, hopefully that's not going to happen, but my data doesn't go with that, because it's also in a data center in Austin, and a data center in Atlanta, and a data center in New York, and a data center in the Midwest. Your data is completely redundantly backed up in these systems. So now the question comes up pretty frequently, well, what about my privacy? There is a price you pay for this. As a consumer, Google is indexing this information, and they are posting ads to you based on what they find. So they are scanning your Google Gmail, they are scanning the documents you use. It's not done in a way that's personally identifiable back to you, and it doesn't make your data shared with anyone else, but it does mean, hey, this person's been writing a lot of documents about real estate lately. Maybe they're looking for a house. So the next search you do, it's going to try and start logically ranking things it thinks you are interested in towards the top. The word of caution I'll give you about that is Google has a lot of your information anyways. Unless you are taking some pretty extraordinary steps to not be tracked by any of this stuff, you're already surrendering a lot of that information. You might as well be getting something back out of it. So they are doing that. No secret about that. We are, most of us in this room, though, probably the last generation that's concerned about that. It is amazing when you look at 20 and unders, they just don't care. It is not, it's a different world, and it's one that we struggle with. And logically, and for good reason, there are some times to be hesitant about that. But like I said, this is an interesting concept because it's the first time in history where we as a society have surrendered something like this kind of information without any kind of compensation. So my honest advice is, if you're comfortable with the tools, use them because they've already got your information.
What about Google, like selling information later on? You know, like you can buy email lists or whatever, and now all of your company's information is in there.
And it's a little bit different for businesses the way they treat that. They do have greater limitations around how they treat it for businesses. Because you are actively paying for the service, they're willing to back off a little bit more in terms of what they're harvesting. Typically, though, that harvest information is used back to the advertising platform. It was interesting. I read something not long ago that said Google makes more money on every iPhone sold than they do on every Android device sold. And you think, how is that? Their operating system is running on Android. The reason is Google doesn't do any development of the operating system for the Apple OS. Apple builds the iPhone. Google gives away their operating system for the Android. So they have sunk costs on the Android, but they advertise to both. So because they have no sunk revenue on the iPhone, but they still get the advertising revenue, they actually make more money off the iPhone. Isn't that funny? It's interesting. I always look at that. Android is hands down the dominant smartphone globally. Part of the reason for that is what I just mentioned, though. They give that operating system away for free. So if you're Samsung, if you're LG, if you're one of the other mobile providers, Google will give you that operating system for free. You can change it. You can put your own programs in it. You can do whatever you want with it. It's yours for free. The reason that's interesting is I had a middle school science teacher, and I don't know who here remembers the old ads that I think it was Tylenol is used in more hospitals than any other brand. Well, that is an absolutely true statement. The reason was they gave hospitals all the free Tylenol they wanted. So it's kind of the same idea. Yes, Google Android is in use on more phones than any other operating system because the manufacturers don't pay for it. They love Android because it doesn't cost them a dime and they can modify it any way they want. That's not necessarily to say it's a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of. We really want to make sure our customers are educated about this stuff and know the reasoning behind the way things work the way they do and how they work. So just some insight there.
Tyler, do these programs, the docs and do they download a software on your computer, or are you just, is the software itself in the cloud?
It is a software itself in the cloud with a cached version locally. There's nothing to install. You don't have to run a special program. It's all done through the browser. So let's say you're on a plane, like I mentioned earlier, and you want to modify your document. It still launches the browser. The tools to modify the document still are there. They're not a plug-in. They're not anything extra you've had to install. But Google says he may want to come back and edit this later, so I'm going to save what's called a cached copy so they can do that later. So it's not anything you have to install, and that's one of the things that makes it really easy is that you don't have to have administrative rights on a computer to install it. There are some really nice things about how simple it is because it just essentially works. You open the document, it launches the appropriate tools in the browser, and you're editing. There's nothing for you to have to intercept and do.
Well, an example would be, so my wife has a computer, does not have Office on it.
Right.
When she gets a Word attachment and an email,
yes,
how would she use this to open that? Because right now she can't.
Great question. Great question. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. Google Drive, you do have to install. So that's the sync tool that keeps documents synced between your local computer and the web. If she drops that Word document into Google Drive, that syncs it up to Google. She then just opens this interface and double clicks on the document. So it's an extra step. She drags it into Google Drive, then comes here and double clicks on the document. It opens right up. When she's done, again, it's the same thing. You just save as from within the document, and you can save it right back out as a Microsoft Word document. Yes?
Do our printers recognize Google Documents?
Great question. They do. They recognize it as you would printing a web page. So because the printer sees all of this in the browser, it essentially sees it as a web page. Now, Google's done a good job of kind of abstracting the contents so you don't get like the URL at the top of the page and all that other stuff on there. You get just the contents of the document or the spreadsheet or whatever itself. But yes, it interfaces just fine. If you can print from your browser, you can print from the Google tools. Absolutely.
Modify it normally would.
Exactly. Exactly.
I gotta stop you.
Yeah.
Went over real quickly, and I really don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Fast. You're saying the first step would be you take a document, you drag it over to Google Drive. Not to sound too dumb, but exactly where is that existing and how do I drag it?
That's a great question. So most of us are familiar with navigating around. This is Windows Explorer. This is the Mac Finder. You'll see in both, over on the left-hand side, you have Google Drive. So it's fifth down right here, and it's at the bottom of the entries under Favorites right here. So if I click on that, it's just like any other folder on my computer. So it's the same as going to my documents or my music. I click on that, and it's just a folder. The difference is this magic green check mark you see in all these documents. As soon as I drag something in there, it pushes it up to the cloud. As soon as it's done, you get the green check mark. That's how you know it's synced between your computer and the cloud. That's a great question, though, and it is just like any other navigation on the computer. If you're navigating to my documents folder, it's the same, just a different folder name. And it works. This is one of those things that we call automagic. It just works. You know, if you put anything in that folder, it takes care of the rest. There's no button I have to click. There's no command I have to run.
Is there something on Google Plus to click to make that come up?
No, and actually that's one of the cool things is the second it's available in Google, it'll show up in your documents list automatically. The other nice thing, how many of us in here have ever had Microsoft Word or something like that crash on you and you go, oh no, I haven't clicked save in 20 minutes. Oh no, we've all done that. One of the cool things about the Google tools is it saves every few seconds without you doing anything. I mean seconds. If you stop and take the time to look, it's already saved. So there is almost no way for you to lose information when you're working in these tools.
What's about security? What about the virus?
So that's a great question, and that's one of the nice things. They haven't been as prevalent in the last several years, but there was a time when there were a host of viruses that just specifically targeted Microsoft Office documents because they are the de facto standard, and because of the scripting language they were using at the time, there were a lot of viruses that targeted those specific file types. The Google file type doesn't have that issue. The other part of that is the nastiest virus that's around these days, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is the CryptoLocker virus. Been prevalent for almost a year now. The way it works is if you accidentally download this virus as an email attachment or from a website, it encrypts all of your documents. What that means is the documents are still there, but there is absolutely no way for you to open them. It is a scary proposition, and Paul knows exactly where I'm going with this. What happens is you get an alert on your screen that says all of your files have been encrypted. If you would like to get the password to unlock them, send us anywhere from $300 to $700 via an untraceable account, and we promise we'll let you unlock your files. Now, they might, but it's kind of like saying, hey, walk down this dark alley with a briefcase full of money. Chances are it's not going to end well for you.
I had a friend with a company. The company did it 3 times before they let all the documents go. Like over $2,500 they sent them.
Yep. And so what'll happen?
So they kind of
Yep.
had to do it.
Yep. So there's 2 pieces of advice there. 1, run really good antivirus. Pay attention to what you're downloading. And 2, have your data backed up somewhere else. Now, there are lots of great backup tools out there, and they'll do things that Google Drive won't. But the good news is any document you have in Google Drive is still backed up in that cloud and isn't affected by something like this. And you can go back and recover it. The other cool thing is Google by default saves the last 100 versions of your document. The last 100 versions of every document you touch. So I start typing up a long proposal to a customer. I'm working on it. Neil works on it for a while. Lee works on it for a while. I come back and work on it. I get down the road and I go, you know what? The version we were on 2 weeks ago, I liked it better. A few mouse clicks, boom. The version from 2 weeks ago is right back there. If I want to go to the version I had yesterday, the version the day before that, the version the day before that, they're all stored right there. The last 100 versions of your document are stored and available within a few mouse clicks to be pulled right back to where you can edit it again. So again, some really powerful tools. So I read an interesting statistic last week that said last year, Microsoft Windows shipped on only 14% of all computing devices last year. That's kind of an alarming statistic because we still think of Microsoft as being dominant with more than 90% of the desktops and laptops in the world, and that's true. The trick is that has been so far surpassed by smartphones and tablets that the number of computing devices that can handle computational tasks, that has shrunk dramatically. So Google has done a really good job of embracing mobile as well. And again, Microsoft is hot on their heels, and this is great for us because we have a lot of really powerful tools now. These devices, when they first came out a few years ago, we all thought, that is so cool. I can read my email on it. I can respond to it. I can do that on a BlackBerry. I've been able to do that for a while. That's cool. But now I can look at movies. I can consume all this really cool content. The big shift now is being able to be productive on these devices. I need to be able to do more than just answer an email. And Google has some great tools that are absolutely free. What we're going to show you next is applicable to both Apple's operating system as well as the Google Android operating system. This all works from an Apple perspective on an iPod Touch, on an iPad, on an iPhone. In the Google environment, any device running Android will do these same things. So we've talked about these document types now. So we've got 3 applications: Google Docs, Google Sheets, and Google Slides. These are all pretty new right now, but they have already gotten rave reviews. We've been playing around with them and are really impressed with their capabilities. So here's a Google Doc on my iPad. Now, there have been text editors for the iPad around for a while now. The biggest news in the last year on this front was back in March of this year, Microsoft launched Microsoft Office for the iPad. It's a big deal. Still not out there for the Android. The big deal with it, though, is from Microsoft's perspective is you can download the app for free. You can open all the documents you want. You can't save them. If you want to edit a document and save it or create a new document, you need to have an Office 365 subscription. So free to view, but you got to pay to save or create a new document. With the Google tools, and again, the power of Google Drive, this is all completely free to individuals and $5 a user per month for businesses. So I've got a document up here. This is actually a shot I took back at the office this morning. I can edit my document there. I can do whatever I want to with it and then save it right back to Google Drive. And the minute I save it back to Google Drive, it's back on my computer at home. It's back on my laptop. It's back on my smartphone. Again, it's everywhere the minute I'm done with my editing. So you can, here's the really big part: open, edit, and save Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files. You are not just limited, even in the mobile app, to Google formats. You can do Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files. You can save them in the cloud or save them locally on the device so you can edit offline, and it is entirely free. No subscription service required for consumers. You can now basically pull the rug out from under Microsoft on their mobile strategy a little bit. You don't have to pay a subscription service to Office 365. You can use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint natively in this application and do it all for free. So let's do a little example of that real quick. I'm going to go into my Google Documents page. So this is what the Google document, this is what the Docs interface looks like. We've got some stuff here. For those of you who have been to a John Adams seminar, you'll recognize this. John and I work together a lot using the Google tools. So I'm going to go into this Lunch and Learn document now. So this is a document that I and my staff have been playing around with, let's say. This is just obviously an example. But let's say we want to work collaboratively on this document now. So I'm going to have Neil and Lee get logged into this document. And what you will see is, all right, Lee's connected to my document. I know she's working on it. And there's Neil May. Neil May just popped in.
How are they connected?
So this is all in the cloud. They are just connected to the internet. They could be here. They could be on the other side of the world.
They just went into their Google account.
Exactly. Exactly.
So he's connected via an
And
iPad.
they see you popped up the same way right now.
Exactly. So Neil's doing this from his laptop. Lee's doing this from her iPad. And the only thing all three of us have to have is they were invited to the document, so they couldn't do this if they weren't an invitee. And they have an internet connection. And that is literally all that's required. And you'll see down there at the bottom, Lee's got the pink marker, Neil's got the blue marker up at the top. I can see real time as they're working in this document. So rather than, again, sending a document around and waiting for somebody to comment on it, send it back, we can work collaboratively in real time on the same document. And if I want to be able to chat with them as we're doing it, I just open up a chat window. And again, now Lee doesn't have this ability on the iPad today, but we can sit here and chat as we're working on the document about what we're doing together. And as I make edits too, they're seeing these in real time. So as we're working, we constantly see what everybody else is doing in the document.
Same thing for my iPhone. I'm also connected via my iPhone. As Tyler's typing, it's also updating.
Now, are you the only one that can be typing, Tyler, or can you
No, we can
All
also,
three of us can type at the exact same time. And that very reason is why you can invite somebody to only comment or view. You may not want everybody to be able to edit at the same time.
Now, it's
Tyler?
also saving all these in real time.
Yes.
Exactly. You'll see actually right here, all changes saved in Drive, and it is saving in real time. So if I were to leave this right now and pick up my phone, the changes are already there.
The greatest president seminar is telling us to get our money out of Microsoft.
we didn't say that. We don't want to be sued.
So Tyler, when you have a document,
We were showing you
that
that's
we're working collaboratively, and I want to done, because you know how one person never calls into that meeting to change the document. I can at some point lock the document.
Yes. So the question was, I've got a group of people working on the document. I've sent out a bunch of invitations. A couple of people can't make it to the meeting. They don't show up. One, they're going to get nominated to be on a committee. Two is, once you're done editing this with your team, you can lock the document and basically make everybody else at that point read only. So you can change the permission. So I sent out the original invite to let you edit. If you've missed the meeting and we've already had to move forward, when we're done, I can change your invitation to either comment only or view only.
So you have to change the individual person, not
Correct.
the document.
Correct. So you have to change the individual, and you'll see if I go into share here, I can change with that many clicks. Somebody who can edit can now only view or comment.
So it does list everybody who has access.
Exactly. So that's literally all there is to starting this function. The document's already in Google. If I click share, I can change what permissions somebody has, and I can invite new people to share the document. So on the spur of the moment, you have an urgent situation. Hey, we need to produce this document by 2 p.m. I start a blank document. Within 60 seconds, I can invite anybody I need to into the document. I can paste in text from a Microsoft Word document. I can create just from a blank slate here the document we're working on. But literally within a matter of seconds, everybody I need involved in this document can be in it, engaged, and working actively and collaboratively on producing what we need as a final result.
Can you create a document that has anonymous editing capabilities? In other words, just having something available that you don't have to have pre-permission.
Not from an edit perspective, and that's kind of intentional. Google wants to make sure that if your document suddenly goes away and is replaced by a ha ha ha, you're able to tell who did that. You are able to anonymously share read visibility into the document, but in terms of being able to be in an edit, that's got to be an identified account. And I'll show you actually where that comes from in the sharing for the document.
Tyler, where you are now, that is Word, right?
No, this is actually the Google tool, and I'll show you. There we go. There's a link right there at the top. If I just want to share it, I just copy out that link at the top. So this is, and let me show you a little bit, good question. This looks very familiar to us in terms of being able to edit. So I want to change this to a title line. I want to change the font. I want to make it underlined. I want to change the color. I want to change the justification, any of that stuff. All of those very familiar tools are all right here. And the same for undo. Who here knows the Control Z trick? Everybody know that? I'm a big fan of Control Z, Command Z on a Mac. I had a graphic arts buddy. What Control or Command Z does is undo the last action, and it'll do several in a row. So if you've ever typed something and went, oh, I didn't mean to do that, just hit Control Z on Windows, Command Z on Mac, and it'll undo the last action. I had a buddy who was big into graphic arts, and graphic artists use this a lot as they're editing big files. He had a T-shirt that just said Command Z.
Tyler, how did you import your logo?
Actually, you can drag or import just about anything you want to. You can insert rather from here all of the standard things you could in like a Microsoft Word document. So you can insert an image, a file, a video, a line, page numbering, all that kind of stuff. You can drag in very easily. The other cool thing about this is, and let me show you. No, not a full spreadsheet. You can create a small table. It's a little bit limited version.
Well, and then you have the sheets.
Right, exactly.
So you have Google Sheets that you can use spreadsheets with.
So, yes, you can pull that in from a Google Sheet, yes. So I was talking about, you can see all these revisions of it. So here are all the revisions to this document. You can see I can step back in time. I can see who was working on the document when it was edited, but I can replace it to whatever point I want. So this is the last probably 10 or so revisions to this document. Again, you've got 100. So I can go back to yesterday at 10:19 a.m. or to June 11th at 11 a.m. when Neil May and I were working on the document. I can return the document to that state at any time I want.
Okay, not convert PDF, but
Yes, and let me show you a couple of cool things you can do there. So what I can do is download as. So download as means it's just going to, just like downloading anything else, it's going to download a copy of the file as .docx, open document, PDF, plain text, web page, or rich text format. Those are all the big standard formats. So let's say I want to do that. Let me show you exactly what this looks like.
It takes it down to Word.
Yep. So let me show you how this looks for both a Word file and for a PDF, because those are the ones we most often use. So I'm going to download a Word file and a PDF file. So guess what? There's a PDF file of that file I was just working on. That was that easy. That click, and there's my file. And let's say I've got somebody I want to send a Word doc to. There it is. I'm going to double click on that. And there you go. There it is, Microsoft Word. That easy. No laborious conversion steps. It is literally as simple as going under File, Download As, and you can do it in any of those standard formats.
Is there a PDF to Word doc conversion function of the software?
Not that way. You can obviously open a Word document and save it out as a PDF. There's not a reverse of that yet. But there's a big lab at Google who's just working on things that I want. Not actually. But there is a big lab at Google who's constantly saying, okay, what's next? What are users going to be interested in? And the nice thing is, unlike some of the other tools where you're constantly having to patch it and plug security holes and buy the latest version, the next time Google releases a new version of this, you're just going to see a little link on there that says, we've got a new version. You ready to go to it? Click yes, you're there. That's it. No software to install, no downtime, no patches. It is just instantaneous. And you can choose how early you see stuff. You can say, you know what, I'm kind of a front bleeding edge kind of guy. I want to see it the minute it's available. They'll let you do that. You may say, I'm going to wait until it's stable and I know it works the way I want it to. And you can preview it. You can go in and play with the new tool and decide if that's the one you want to use or if you want to continue using the existing one. Now, eventually, they will force you onto the latest version. But the other nice thing about this is, let's face it, for a home user, Microsoft Office is going to cost you about $100 a year for 5 users. That's the Office 365 subscription. Or the going rate for Office Home and Business is around $250 to $300. Again, for a consumer, for a non-business user, this costs you nothing. If you want to go with the business version, $5 a month.
then and I don't have to go get it.
Exactly.
I walked in 5 minutes later. Teach him how to sign on to Google. Google Drive.
So Google Drive is a free download. If you go to Google, it's a free download. It just runs locally on the computer. And as I mentioned earlier, Google has gotten a lot of traction, particularly in schools, with their Google Chrome operating system. So you can buy what would be a $500 or $600 laptop, but instead of Windows, it's got Google's OS on it, and it's $200. Now, it's not going to have as much storage space on it. Reason for that is Google wants you using all this in the cloud, and it integrates obviously seamlessly with their online tools. Yes.
Since you're talking about Google Chrome, I use Google Chrome all the time.
Yes.
That print thing, I don't like because whenever I click print, it won't let me go in and check. Like when I went to print these tickets.
Yes.
To save ink, I didn't want it to print all the other junk. I just wanted to say, but there's no way to do that. Is there?
And it operates a little bit differently in the browser as a whole than it does in the browser as a document editor. So in Google Chrome, you are limited. You can choose to print just like one page of the series of pages. Yeah. But it operates differently when you're talking about the documents themselves, because the documents themselves, it prints just the body text essentially. It doesn't print all the toolbars and the browser window and all that stuff. And you can, just like you would in any other word processor, choose to just print a specific page range. So if I say just print page 1 or page 1 through 5 of 30, you can print. It's, again, just the contents of the body of that document. It's not all the other stuff. And you can choose the range you want to print.
If I didn't want, let's say it was from you and I had your logo, say I didn't want to print your logo, I just want to print the text instead of teaching from.
Yes.
There's no way to do that.
There's not on that front. You're right. You can't subtract that out. Now, the thing you could do is save the document to your drive, unlink it from the shared version, and then you could delete that and do whatever you want to with it. It wouldn't sync back. Basically, if you're in the tool itself, so I'm working on this document. I said I want to take this to my Google Drive. All I have to do is move it to a folder.
So I have to put it in Drive.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there is my drive. So if you've got a bunch of folders under my drive, so you've got work documents and kids sports stuff, and you've got home documents, you'd see all those folders listed here. So I could save it from that shared workspace over to just my Google Drive. So the other big one we wanted to mention today, and this is going to be getting a lot of exciting new stuff in it. YouTube, everybody knows, was purchased by Google in 2006. This statistic blew my mind. 6 billion hours of video are watched on YouTube every month. 6 billion hours of video are watched on YouTube every month. Almost half of that is my 15-year-old. So one of the reasons we wanted to mention this is, particularly for business owners, if you want to make sure you're staying up in the Google rankings, your YouTube content is a huge influencer on where you show up in Google search results, because Google wants all of their properties to be working together. So if you're using Google Hangouts, if you're using Google Plus, which is their competitor to Facebook, if you're using YouTube, if you're using all of those for your business, all of those actively drive up your showing in a Google search, because those are so tightly linked together. So we've started posting some videos on our YouTube page. It's incredibly simple to do this. And again, you'll get all of this when we send out the presentation. But if you come into our channel, the first 2 videos we posted are how to take a screenshot. Who in here knows how to take a picture of what's on your computer screen? It's a pretty handy tool. Those of you who know how to do that, you wind up using it a lot. So on both a Mac and a Windows machine, and we're going to post the iPhone one shortly, this will show you how to take a picture of what's on your computer screen at any time.
Hi, this is Tyler Jones of Carmichael.
It'll walk you all the way through the
screen,
steps,
and you
show
want
you
to make sure
exactly
you
how to
capture
do
the
it.
text of the message, or
Show
the
you
file
all
is
the
a
commands
PNG
one by
file,
one.
and that stands for Portable Network Graphics.
So again, for business owners, your involvement in all the YouTube properties absolutely drives up where you show in the search result ranks.
How does Google rate the quality of your video as far as how much it helped your SEO?
Good question. So there's a lot of algorithms behind that, and we're looking at maybe doing this sometime later on with a little deeper focus on SEO, bringing in some experts to talk about that. But basically what you're looking for there is they're overall looking for relevance. So if people are looking at that video and then going to your website, or they're looking at that video and then giving it a positive review, or they're looking at that and then putting comments in there with key terms that are relevant to what the video is about, it says, this really helped me take a screenshot. They go, okay, that's relevant. And again, all of that drives it up. It's a pretty complicated algorithm, but it does help because, again, Google's looking at kind of that, how are you in the Google universe? And any part of that you touch influences the overall whole. And that's it. So that's a lot to take in. You're trying to eat and consume all of that at the same time. That's a lot to take in. But what questions are there?
Like if you wanted to say you want to do like a small business, like maybe for your family.
Yes.
And you wanted to go ahead and maybe use like your family's name as your business name for your email address. Can you go ahead, is a YouTube channel included in that?
Yes, absolutely. So when you create an account in Google, it links to all the other Google accounts. The other nice thing is if you've got a domain name, it doesn't have to be a business, but if you've got a domain name for, you might not be surprised to learn that jonesfamily.com is not available. But if I had that and I wanted to be able to have email addresses for my entire family there, I could do that. I could pay Google the $5 per user per month, and I could have Tyler at jonesfamily.com, Lee at jonesfamily.com, William and Elizabeth and Walter and Jean, all of those at jonesfamily.com. And it's about the same cost. It's not that much more expensive than you'd pay to just have an email hosted somewhere else. And with that, you get all of the additional storage space for the Google Docs, you get all of the additional features, you get the website, all of that stuff. So when you look at what you're getting out of that fee, it actually gets you a lot of return for that. Yes, we got a whole bunch of questions over here.
If we host our website with Google, does it make it load quicker?
The speed of the load isn't as directly affected as where you show up in the search results. So they are going to obviously self-promote a little bit and say, if your website's with us, you're going to naturally bubble up to the top a little bit quicker. Yeah, absolutely. It will influence that. Yes?
I'm fascinated by these Google Voice and Android. I know there's a lot of things I don't know. Great to share.
Yeah, we could do a long, and we'll talk about, we could do a long series. There's so many great Google tools. When Carmichael Consulting started, I wanted to find a way that people could find me no matter where I was. So before we started hiring all these good people, and the ones who couldn't be here today because they're actually out doing the real work right now, Google Voice is a really cool tool. Google Voice was an acquisition. It's been at least 3 or 4 years ago now. And one of the things that Google does really well is they think, oh, this would be a great idea. We ought to do this. Well, how much would it cost for us to build it versus to buy somebody who already knows how to do this? Because when you have billions of dollars in the bank, you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. So Google Voice was an acquisition. And the way Google Voice works is you can register a number with Google. So you go onto their website. It's literally voice.google.com. You can sign up and say, I want a phone number in 404 or 770 or 678, or I want it to be in New York. I want it to be 212, or I want it to be in Southern California. You sign up for a number, or you can transfer in your cell phone number. The same thing that gave us number portability between cell phone providers will let you transfer your cell phone number over to Google. So you get that set up, and you can then choose how that works. And you've got a tremendous amount of flexibility there. So let's say, and like I said, our business number started off as a Google Voice number, 678-719-9671. I registered with Google. The cool thing is you can register for a number and then say, try and spell out a word. So if I want 770 awesome, it'll try and find that. Once you've got that number registered, you can choose how it then gets in touch with you. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. So I've got a Google Voice number. When you call that number, I can have it ring my cell phone. I can have it ring my home office phone. I can have it ring my home phone. I can have it ring my Google website, web presence with Google chat. I can have it ring all of those at the same time. I can have it ring them in order, one after the other. I can choose what hours that rings through, what hours it takes you to a voicemail. I can put a button on my website that you can click and it'll call me. Really great, really powerful tools. I can have it go to a specific voicemail box based on your caller ID number. So I could have you a specific message. So I could have, when Paul calls me, take him to this voicemail box, and only Paul hears that outgoing message just based on his caller ID. I can do things like set it up so that it will, you leave a voicemail for me. It'll do a transcription of that. It's all automatically happening in the cloud. It'll send that text to me via SMS text message, via email. It'll send me a copy of the voicemail as an audio attachment file. I can choose a tremendous amount of ways that that reaches out to me. The other cool thing is, these days, a lot of us have different ways you can get a hold of us. So you might call me at the office, you might call me at the house, you might call me on my cell phone. With Google Voice, you can have just one number, and it's going to find you no matter where you are. Well, if you want people to remember that number, you don't want to call them from a different phone then. And they go, oh, I don't recognize this number. Let me save that, and I'll call that number next time. You can have an app on your Android or Apple smartphone for Google Voice, and you can call from that app. So if I call, even though it's a different number on my cell phone's a 404 number, I can have it show up under caller ID as that 678 number that everybody knows to call me in. So everybody knows immediately, oh, I recognize that number, or, oh, the next time I call Tyler, that's the number I'm going to use. And there's even more to that than that to voice. Voice is really cool. I'm a big fan of that tool, and it does some really awesome things.
No, I wasn't going to ask a question. I was really happy.
How do you compare that to Siri?
What's that?
How do you compare it to Siri?
Well, that's a different thing. There's the Google search functionality, which Google now has an app for all the major platforms that'll let you do some pretty cool things in terms of search. And that's really started to evolve a lot. Siri was an early pioneer, but again, competition's a good thing. So Google's got their Google Voice Search app, and Microsoft now has their new voice assistant called Cortana. All of those do some really cool things. And again, they all drive each other forward. So there's some really awesome stuff that'll come out of that for all of us. Yes?
Is Cortana only available on the brand new Android phones?
It is Windows Phone, actually.
Oh, Windows only.
Yes, it's only available in Windows Phone 8.1 and later, I think. And I got a chance to play with it a little bit the other night. I had a colleague who had a Windows Phone, so I promised him I would let him play around with my iPhone 6 if I could play around with his Cortana. And it does actually do some pretty cool things. And the intelligence behind this is what's really the empowering thing. Being able to recognize voice commands, that's neat. But what really starts to get interesting, and when you look at some of these advanced features, like the next time I'm near a grocery store, remind me to get paper towels. It does what's called geofencing because of its GPS mapping technology. It knows where grocery stores are and what they are. And the next time you're near one, it goes, oh yeah, you need paper towels. So that continues to evolve, and there's some really exciting stuff going on in that right now. Yes?
I may have misunderstood, but I think I got down there since you could help post the website on Google. I didn't know that they offered website hosting.
They do, not as an individual service, but if you're using the $5 a month plan I keep referring to, is called Google Apps for Business. If you're doing that, you can. Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Is there a way, because I was playing around on Google Calendar, I really like that calendar.
Yes.
But I don't want to be online to do it. Is there a way to move that down and have it be on my desktop so if I'm not online, I can?
Absolutely. And there's some other tools for that as well. So there are some third-party tools on the iPhone that'll let you basically sync that calendar to the device. Apple actually has a lot of support for Google built in as well. So if you're using an iOS device, you can sync to the calendar. On the desktop, and when you get into the business apps, there is actually a sync tool that if you want to use full Microsoft Outlook and sync your email and your calendar and your address book, you can do that. It's a free tool if you're using the business account, and it'll then sync everything locally. The one downside of the Google tools is inherently they really want you to do it live while you're connected via the browser. So their intent is, Google envisions a world where we're all constantly connected. You're never without internet connectivity. So the tools are somewhat framed with that in mind, and some of them don't work as well when you're disconnected. The calendar obviously gets pretty limited when you're not online because you're no longer getting updates. You can't sync back. You will the next time you connect, but it's a little bit limited. And there's not a way to essentially pull that data out easily without syncing it to another tool. You can, like I said, sync to some tools, and there are a lot of third-party plugins that'll let you do that in some other unique ways. And we could probably do an entire class, if not more, on just Gmail on the calendar. They are really powerful tools, and one of these days we may have to look at doing that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, calendar has really taken off. And one of the things that the precursor that we used in big corporate environments before the Google Calendar was around was Microsoft Exchange. Most of us who've been in big corporate environments know that name. Google has done a good job of pulling a lot of that functionality into their apps so that both for consumers as well as for businesses, you can have things like shared calendaring where I can manage and see the other people on my team, what are their schedules, what are they doing. I can add an invitation to everybody's calendar, all that kind of stuff. Google's done a really good job of doing that. And the other nice thing that Google has done is they've made a really good effort of being able to have both your corporate Google account, if you're doing Google Apps for Business, and your personal account in the same environment, but segmented. So I can see all of my mail, both my personal mail and my corporate mail, if I'm using Google for both, in the same environment, but the two don't ever cross paths. There's never any of this problem where, the soccer schedule for my kid's team winds up in my corporate email. Those two, even though I can see them all together, remain separated. Same thing for calendar, same thing for the other services. Google's been really careful about making sure that they keep a good wall between the two.
Will they show conflicts?
They do in terms of when you throw a flag that says this document was updated by this person and then uploaded.
I mean, like you have a.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Your
yes.
son has a soccer game.
Yes.
You try to put them both.
Yes. You can see.
Even though they're walled.
Exactly. What you can do is it's basically a visibility thing. So when you're in the calendar, you can choose which calendars you see in the same, basically what they call the pane of glass, in that same screen, what I see. And you can see them both, or you can actually see them side by side. You can choose how they appear to you. Yeah, you can absolutely see all of that. I know we've got some folks who are going to have to start leaving. I'm going to continue to answer questions. Let me mention one thing before we get any further. Our next Lunch and Learn is going to be the first Wednesday in December. We're going to be doing one on digital photography. And what we're going to be talking about is if you want to buy a digital camera for somebody for Christmas, what to look for. If you want to create a printed photo album, what are the good services to use and how do you do that? If you want to create a slideshow for your computer screen or for your TV at home with Christmas music in the background, how do you do that? So we're going to cover a lot of ground. So be looking for that. We'll put the registration up in November, and we'd love to see you all back for that. So with that said, let me open the floor back up to questions. I apologize. We were very appreciative that the paper ran the announcement about this. What they forgot to include was the registration information. So it'll be on our website. We'll send out an email. Do make sure we've got your email address before you leave today. I know we've all got cards available. Take a card with you. Let us know your email address. We'll be glad to add you to our list. We don't send out a lot of spam. Pretty much all our email list is about these events. When there's a big security alert or something we want people to be aware about, some safety hazard out there, and big product changes in the industry, things that are kind of relevant tips and hints for folks who are using computers either on their own or in small businesses. But
yeah, if you want to give us your email address, just come see Lee. She'll go and put you on our list and we'll get you added.
It'll come. So one other thing that will really drive up as a small business, your presence on Google is Google reviews. A lot of us have seen those where you can go in and rate a local business and how good they are. We're getting ready to kick that off for Carmichael when we relaunch our website. So we would love to have your feedback on how we're doing. If you've been happy with the information today, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love you to write a review about our business as well if you think we've been helpful. So we'll send that out to the mail list. Do make sure we know how to get a hold of you. And as we start to break up a little bit here, I'm happy to sit still. And if you got questions, come let me know. So again, thank you all for your attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I've been using Google for,